Daniel's boots echoed against the metallic floor of station Kepler 442b as he made his way through the dimly lit corridor. The smell of recycled air and industrial lubricant filled his nostrils, a scent he'd have to get used to for the next 3 years. Outside the reinforced viewports, the planet's twin moons cast an eerie violet glow across the rust-colored landscape. "Diplomat First Class Daniel Reeves, reporting for duty," he announced, standing at attention before Commander Walsh's desk. The commander, a weathered woman with silver streaks in her dark hair, didn't look up from her datapad. "You're late, Reeves." "The shuttle from the gate station was delayed, ma'am. Solar flare interference." Walsh finally raised her eyes, studying him with an expression that made Daniel's stomach tighten. "Sit down. We need to talk about your assignment." Daniel lowered himself into the chair across from her, nodding the tension in her jaw, the way her fingers drummed against the desk's surface. Something was wrong. "I've reviewed your file," Walsh continued. "Top marks at the Interspecies Relations Academy, fluent in 7 xenolanguages, specialization in cultural anthropology and conflict resolution." She paused. "You're also completely unprepared for what I'm about to tell you." "Ma'am, The Kersh," Walsh interrupted. "What do you know about them?" Daniel's mind raced through his training. Indigenous species to this planet. Insectoid physiology, hive-based social structure. They've been cooperative with the colony establishment, though contact has been limited to their worker caste representatives. That's the sanitized version they teach you at the academy. Walsh stood and walked to the viewport. The truth is more complicated. The Kersh aren't just cooperative, they're desperate. Their population has been declining for the past 2 centuries. Genetic degradation, weakening immunity, shortened lifespans. They're dying out, Reeves, and they know it. Daniel absorbed this information, trying to understand where this was leading. "And we're here to help them." In a manner of speaking. Walsh turned back to face him. 3 months ago, their Queen Orla is the closest phonetic translation we have, requested a meeting with our xenobiology team. She proposed a solution to their crisis. She believes that limited genetic exchange with compatible species might introduce the biological diversity they need to survive. The implications hit Daniel like a physical blow. "You mean?" "I mean that human and Kersh DNA, while vastly different, share certain fundamental building blocks. Our scientists have been running compatibility tests. The results are promising, if you can call them that." Walsh's expression hardened. "Queen Orla has specifically requested a human volunteer to spend 1 night in the royal chamber. The biological interaction would be monitored, samples collected, data analyzed. No guarantees of success, but it's a first step." Daniel's mouth went dry. "And you're telling me this because?" "Because you're at Reeves, you're the volunteer." "I didn't volunteer for anything." "You did when you signed up for diplomatic service in uncharted territories. Read the fine print of your contract, Section 47, Paragraph 12. Personnel may be required to participate in culturally significant exchanges that fall outside standard diplomatic protocols." Walsh's voice softened slightly. "Look, I know this isn't what you expected, but if you refuse, the Kersh will interpret it as a rejection. 3 years of careful relationship building will collapse. They'll close off their territory, and we'll lose our foothold on this planet." Daniel stood, packing the small office. His mind reeled with questions, concerns, fears. What does this even mean biologically? What am I actually agreeing to? Dr. Chen can explain the specifics better than I can, but from what I understand, the process involves a form of genetic material exchange through specialized membranes. The Kersh Queen possesses unique organelles that can analyze and potentially integrate compatible genetic sequences. You'd be conscious throughout, and the medical team will be monitoring every vital sign. If anything goes wrong, they'll extract you immediately. "If anything goes wrong," Daniel repeated hollowly. Walsh placed a hand on his shoulder. "I won't lie to you, this is unprecedented. But the Kersh are good people, Reeves. Different from us, yes, but they value honor, cooperation, and survival just like we do. Queen Orla isn't asking this lightly. She's putting her own dignity on the line, exposing herself to potential failure and humiliation in front of her entire hive. Daniel closed his eyes, thinking of all the reasons he'd joined the diplomatic corps. The chance to build bridges between species, to be part of humanity's expansion into the cosmos, to make a difference. When, he asked quietly. Tonight. The royal chamber existed deep within the Kersh hive complex, accessible only through a series of bioluminescent tunnels that pulsed with a strange, rhythmic light. Daniel walked flanked by two Kersh warriors, their chitinous armor gleaming like polished obsidian, their compound eyes tracking his every movement. Dr. Chen walked beside him, explaining the medical monitoring equipment embedded in the thin bodysuit he now wore. Your core temperature, heart rate, neural activity will be tracking everything. The suit will also collect tissue samples and environmental data. Remember, if you feel any distress, just say extract, and we'll have you out in under 30 seconds. They reached a massive circular door carved from what looked like compressed amber. The warriors stepped aside as it slowly spiraled open, revealing a chamber that took Daniel's breath away. The walls were alive with bioluminescent patterns that shifted and flowed like aurora borealis. The air was thick with a sweet, almost intoxicating scent, and in the center, on a raised platform surrounded by glowing pools, was Orla. She was larger than any Kersh he'd seen, easily 3 meters tall, with an elongated cranium that housed what he knew to be one of the most sophisticated neural networks in the known galaxy. Her exoskeleton was a deep emerald green, etched with golden patterns that Daniel recognized as status markers in Kersh culture. But it was her eyes that captured him, multifaceted like all her species, but with a depth and intelligence that was unmistakably individual. Daniel Reeves. Her voice emerged from a specialized vocal organ, the words heavily accented but clear. You honor me with your presence. He approached the platform, acutely aware of his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. Queen Orla, the honor is mine. She gestured with one of her 4 arms toward the pool beside her. I know this must be frightening for you. It is frightening for me as well. Never has a queen of the Kersh asked such a thing of another species. Daniel found himself relaxing slightly at her candor. Why me? Why humans? Orla's mandibles clicked in what his training identified as thoughtful consideration. When my scientists first encountered your species, they were struck by your genetic resilience. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, near-extinction events, and each time you emerged stronger, more diverse. That adaptability is encoded in your very DNA. It is what my people have lost. She moved closer to the edge of the platform, and Daniel could see the subtle bioluminescence patterns shifting across her exoskeleton, a form of emotional expression, he remembered. But more than this, I chose you specifically because I read your file. I know you studied our culture, our poetry, our history. You tried to understand us not as specimens to be cataloged, but as people with our own dreams and fears. Daniel felt a sudden surge of respect for this alien queen who had done her own research, made her own choice based on more than just biological compatibility. I want to help, he said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. Tell me what I need to do. The process was nothing like Daniel had imagined. Orla guided him into one of the luminous pools, a warm, viscous liquid that felt alive against his skin. She submerged partially beside him, and from specialized glands along her thorax, she released tendrils of bioluminescent material that drifted through the liquid like sentient threads. Relax, she murmured. This will feel strange, but there should be no pain. The tendrils found him, wrapping gently around his arms, his torso, his legs. Through the thin fabric of his suit, he could feel them probing, analyzing, communicating in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. Data scrolled across his heads-up display, genetic sequences being mapped, compatibility markers being identified. But beyond the clinical aspects, something unexpected was happening. Through the tendrils, Daniel could sense Orla, not her thoughts exactly, but her emotions. Her hope, fierce and desperate. Her fear of failure. Her loneliness as a queen who had lost 3 generations of her hive to the slow decline. And underneath it all, a deep well of gratitude that this strange human had chosen to trust her. Time became fluid. They floated in the pool for what might have been hours, connected by those glowing threads, while her biology worked its ancient magic, sorting, cataloging, preserving sequences that might hold the key to her species' survival. Finally, Orla withdrew the tendrils. Daniel surfaced, gasping slightly, his mind still reeling from the intimacy of the connection. "It is done," Orla said softly. "My geneticists will need months to analyze what we've gathered, but I felt it, Daniel. I felt the strength in your code, the resilience. You have given my people hope." Daniel pulled himself from the pool, Dr. Chen's voice crackling in his ear with status reports that everything looked normal. But he barely heard her. He was looking at Orla, at this remarkable being who had humbled herself for her people's survival. "Will it work?" he asked. Her mandibles clicked in what he now recognized as uncertainty. "I do not know, but we have taken the first step. That is more than we had yesterday." As Daniel prepared to leave the chamber, Orla called out to him once more. "Daniel Reeves, you asked why I chose you. There is one thing I did not say." She paused, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to something that looked almost like warmth. "I chose you because I could see you would treat this not as duty or obligation, but as what it truly is, an act of profound trust between 2 species trying to find their way in this vast universe." Daniel smiled, something loosening in his chest. "Then I'm glad it was me, Your Majesty." 3 months later, Daniel stood in Commander Walsh's office again, reading the preliminary reports from the Kersh geneticists. The results were cautiously optimistic, several promising genetic sequences identified, initial compatibility tests successful, further trials approved. But what struck him most was the final page of the report, written in Orla's own hand. "To Daniel Reeves, who spent one night giving us hope for 1,000 generations, you will always be remembered in the songs of the Kersh." Outside the viewport, the violet moons rose over the alien landscape, and Daniel realized that his first assignment at this distant outpost had taught him something no academy course ever could. That the future of humanity among the stars would be built not just on technology and treaties, but on moments of profound vulnerability and trust between beings who dared to bridge the impossible distance between their worlds.